We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. We suffer, but most of that suffering doesn't come from what actually happens. It comes from what we imagine. The ancient philosopher Seneca once said it clearly: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. It's not just a quote. It's a truth that cuts straight to the core of how we live. Today, we take a closer look at this one sentence. And together, we'll explore how much of your life has been shaken, not by what actually happened, but by what you feared might happen. Fear in the mind is greater than fear in reality. Real pain fades, but imagined pain, that lingers. What actually happens ends, but in your mind, it keeps replaying. Seneca, the Roman philosopher and leading voice of the Stoics, understood this deeply. He once said, "Most of our suffering doesn't come from reality. We torment ourselves with things that haven't happened yet, and may never happen at all." Think about it. The job interview that hasn't even happened yet. The text that never came back. The sleepless nights, trapped in a loop of what-ifs. You've been there. We all have. The truth is, much of our suffering begins in the shadow of a single word: imagination. Why do we suffer? In our imagination? We are creatures of imagination. It's what allowed us to build civilizations, to create science, to dream beyond survival. But that same imagination is also what drags us into anxiety and pain. The human brain is wired to predict the future. And that prediction comes from a deep survival instinct, a need to stay safe. What if they don't like me? What if tomorrow goes wrong? Are they ignoring me? These thoughts aren't reality. They're scripts, written and played out only inside your mind. And yet, you feel them, you hurt from them, you live inside them, as if they're true. Sometimes, those imaginary stories hurt more than anything real. Imagined pain becomes reality. Real pain has a beginning and an end, but imagined pain, it doesn't stop. It plays on repeat, like a film, with no final scene. And because it's based on nothing certain, it feels even heavier. The less we know, the more we fear. That's why imagined pain lasts longer and cuts deeper. For example, when there's tension between you and someone, and they say, "No, that's not what I meant," the pain ends. But when they say nothing, you start wondering, do they hate me? Did I mess up? Are they talking about me to others? And just like that, you trap yourself in a kind of mental hell. Imagination becomes your jailer, and soon, that imagined pain starts to shape real consequences. You end up living a life scarier than the truth, a life built by your own hands. How to escape the loop of imagined pain? So how do we break free from the loop of imagined suffering? First, focus only on the facts. They didn't reply. That's a fact. They must hate me. That's a story. The more you separate fact from interpretation, the less power the pain has. Second, separate facts from emotions. They ignored me on purpose. That's how it feels. But is it true? Changing the question changes the thought. And when your thoughts change, your emotions follow. Third, write it down. Anxious thoughts feel louder in your head. But once they're on paper, they begin to settle. Writing brings order, and order softens fear. Fourth, stop chasing what if. Saying maybe is another way of saying, I don't actually know. And when you admit that, you stop the cycle of overthinking and guessing. You no longer need to fill in the blanks with fear. Real stories of imagined pain. A woman didn't hear back from her friend. Days passed. No reply. No reason. She stayed up at night thinking, did I do something wrong? The worry consumed her. But later, she found out the friend's phone had simply broken. Another man had just finished a job interview. Then silence. He assumed the worst. He blamed himself. He shut down emotionally. But a few days later, he got the second round invitation. It had all been in his head. In both cases, the pain they felt didn't come from reality. It came from their imagination. And it lasted longer than the truth ever would have. What Seneca still teaches us today. Seneca lived nearly 2,000 years ago. And yet, his words still speak to us. In this very moment, we suffer because of imagination. We waste our days because of it. We punish ourselves with stories we made up. Knowing that truth, that's the greatest wisdom we can carry with us today. Half of the pain you feel might be from something that hasn't even happened yet. The first step out of that pain is saying to yourself, "This is only in my mind." Today, may Seneca's simple words lift some of that weight from your life. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. May those words help you today. Thank you for watching.